Greetings, folks. I'm Guy Allen from Unique Cars Magazine, and with me, of course, is Mark Higgo Higgins. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks, Guy. How are you?
Not bad. Mate, lockdown. Seriously, over it. On a more cheerful note, Shannons has got a giant auction coming up. We can't go to their showrooms, so we're talking to each other via Zoom, and we've got a bunch of cars to talk about. Now, the market generally for chrome bumper stuff is very lively at the moment. There's plenty happening.
Absolutely. I mean, prices are going through the roof on a lot of product, and there is a lot of product out there. A lot of people are going, well, it's time to cash in my chips, I guess. And there's a lot of people saying, well, we'll have your chips, thanks very much. I'm not so sure about the plastic bumper cars. The more modern classics don't seem to be quite running off floors and out of auction houses or classifieds as fast as the chrome bumper cars.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think there's some selected plastic bumper cars that are doing well, and a great example is NISSAN R32, which has doubled or tripled in value in the last few years. That's a SKYLINE, of course. The upside is there's some good buying out there still, if you know where to look around. Frustrating if you're trying to sell a plastic bumper car, though.
Oh, just a little bit, yeah, just a little bit. And I'm sort of going through that phase at the moment, but that's okay. But I mean, it's not just the hero cars, the GT cars and all this, but even things like FALCON 500s and Kingswoods are commanding a good dollar these days. What we used to just lob around in as a family car, you know, vinyl 3 in the tree or a column auto or something like that, they're suddenly attracting a lot of buyers and a whole new fan base, to be honest.
Well, you've given me the perfect lead in there. I'll talk about one of the cars that caught my eye, which is a bright yellow 1980 CM CHRYSLER VALIANT. Now, these things are land yachts. They're huge. And the fact they've painted this one bright yellow is fantastic from my point of view. It's just, you'll have no trouble finding it in any car park in the world. And what I like about it, it's the big six, it's a 245, it's an auto, very much the family runabout. But it's a classic case of what you're talking about. The estimate's 25 to 35. I'd be astounded if it didn't hit the top end of that, and wouldn't be greatly surprised if it went further, particularly in this case, because the drive report reads well, and it seems to be a car that you really wouldn't have to touch.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back in the day, car parks were full of 1980, let's say that as an example, XC/XD Falcons, the Valiant, as you mentioned, and probably HZ Kingswoods with a smattering of Commodores in there. But car parks themselves were full of these land yachts, and car park spaces had to be so much bigger than what they are now, you know. That's because the cars are just so much bigger. So interesting.
Okay, so you and I have been saying for ages that there's value in the American car market, but you've tripped over something here which has got a real twist to it.
Well, I have, and it's something that is near and dear to our hearts, and it's a Mach 1 Mustang, a 1969 Mustang, a California car that was actually the Unique Cars giveaway car many years ago and supervised by our own Uncle Phil. And if anyone knows Uncle Phil, as we both do, it would be 150% perfect in its build. Not 100%, 150%, because I've never met a more fussy bloke in my life about a car ever. Like, you know, not even the people that design and create them and build them are as fussy as Uncle Phil, which is a great thing because it means that the lucky buyer that buys this car, it's done about 68,000 miles now and it's got an estimate of $75,000, $85,000. They are in for a treat. It's painted in the Moffat red colour. I'll call it Moffat red. I'm not sure what red, but it's built to look like Moff's 69 Trans Am Mustang. It's got mini lights on it. It's left-hand drive, that's fine, but it is just a glorious bit of American muscle car. And the high point in Mustang design. 1969 is definitely the high point in Mustang design.
And it looks as though this one's been looked after. What gets me about this, even at the upper range of that estimate, compared to what you're getting in Aussie muscle cars at the moment, it's a lot of bang for your buck. You know, it's still a 351 4V with a 4-speed manual, with a 9-inch in the back of it. Like it's top spec. All right, moving to the other side of the Atlantic, the issue of Unique Cars that's out now has our big European or Euro-Brit, so European and British Buyers Guide. Now, we haven't done one of these for 2 or 3 years, thanks in part to COVID and a few other things. So bigger than Ben-Hur.
Bigger than Brexit, actually. Because it's rather funny that last time we did this, everyone was in bed together, and now they're all apart, and Brexit's happened and everything like that. But the Euro-Brit guide is massive, and it covers, as you say, all the best cars from Europe and a huge range of cars from the UK as well. Cliffy Chambers has done his magic, as always, on these buyers' guides, and it virtually covers everything and anything that's popped up from any of those countries. I think including line Robins too. So it delves that deeply.
Which brings us to the auction, or back to the auction. There's a whole bunch of really interesting European cars up in this auction. The one that caught my eye particularly was a Citroen SM, one of those that I'd love to have one in the shed. And this is a right-hand drive. It's got a nice clean drive report. It actually reads pretty well on that front. If it's like a lot of these things, if they're looked after and the owner's kept up the maintenance, you're okay. If it needs a lot of work, then you're going to know about it and you're going to need deep pockets. And which is kind of why I've gravitated to this one, because it actually reads pretty well on the maintenance side of things. They've got, as you know, Shannons does a drive report with all their cars. They tend not to pull their punches. If something's wrong, they tell you.
Even if you've got one, as you said, that needs a little bit of work. It is a classic, a real classic, and a very, I mean, you build a lot of them. So you are buying something very, very unique, shall we say. And
you look at something, you look at this thing, 1973, compared to what we were generally getting around in this country, an SM was just a spaceship. It was something from a different planet.
Oh, totally. Absolutely it was, even just in its looks. I think the smartest thing we had back then was an XA Falcon 2-door and an HQ Monaro 2-door, and that's about, and a Charger. And that's about as racy and spacey as we got. And then this thing's turned up like from Mars. It just looks like something George Jetson would be in.
Now, I wanted to mention one other car, which is the 1932 CROSSLEY.
Yes.
We have an interest in this because we featured this car about 6 years ago or so. Belongs to the former publicans at Tintagel, and it's essentially an ultra rare chassis and driveline with a hand-built and properly built English ash frame, all the rest of it, hand-built body on it. And it's just a beautiful piece of machinery. Yeah,
it's a gorgeous looking car and a super rare car, and knowing how it's been looked after and cared for, it's going to make a buyer very, very happy. They're going to have to do a lot of reading up on it, because wherever they stop and people say, they can go, well, mate, tell me what's this all about? So if you're going to buy it, read up.
And here's the kicker, the estimate's 50 to 70. To me, that's
a lot of money, something that rare. Well, a couple of special mentions for Shannon's auction for me. So we were talking about the Reliant Robin before. I noticed that there's an AMC in there, made famous by Wayne's World, the movie, and the car, and the guys did the Bohemian Rhapsody in there. So there's one of those up for sale, and that's a very rare car, and you'd have to just get some mates together and get some wigs on and just recreate that scene from the movie. And another one is a rare car also. It's a 1971 911E Porsche. It's a Sportomatic, so rare because it's the fuel-injected engine. It's a start of that fuel-injected era for Porsche. And the Sportomatic gearbox was essentially an automatic manual or a clutchless manual. So you still had to shift gears, but you didn't have to push a clutch pedal to do it. The way the market is at the moment, for a rare car like that, I think it'll end up at the upper end of the estimate, maybe even more, who knows, on the day.
All right, well, a couple of final ones. A very quick mention for me is there are two Nissan Fairlady 300ZX, and one's auto, the other's manual. And the estimates aren't outrageous. The estimates start at 14 to 18 for the auto, and they're more like 20 to 25 for the manual. Your thoughts on them?
Well, I mean, it's not a 240Z, which was a lightweight sports car and all the rest. So it's grown in size, it's grown in stature. It's more of a GT car, more of a cruiser. But as a cruiser, as a two-door coupe, as a cruiser rather than a sort of a sports car, it was a fabulous thing back in the day. I mean, it was a big competition to the Toyota Supra, and both of those cars, I think, are sort of are flying under the radar at the moment. So I think anyone that buys either of those two, they'll be very happy with the choice. And it's, I think they're both future classics. And yeah, good fun to drive. I drove the non-turbo and the turbo versions, and funnily enough, I think it's a better car as an auto. It kind of fits the character of the car a bit better as the auto rather than the manual.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. And you're not spending $1 million to get something that's a little bit glamorous to be in too.
Well, that's right. And as you say, it's not a lot of money to outlay, and I guess quite affordable to service and repair.
All right. Well, let's hope lockdown ends one day while we're still young enough to drive, and we'll talk again soon.